navigate through this. We'll see how easy it really is, right?
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today, we've got Kurt Kemple on the show. How you doing, Kurt?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, man. This
Uh,
is going to be a lot of
I
fun.
wore my Gatsby shirt. I'm not sure if you can see it. Probably not. Oh, there we
We
go.
can just see the
Gee.
top of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, cool, man. So yeah, it's been a while. How are you? How's Amazon life?
It's good. So yeah, I've been there for a little over half a year now. It honestly took just about that long just to take everything in and get feel like I'm fully up and running. But yeah, no, it's been a great experience so far. Dev advocacy is a good role for me because I love to help other people succeed. So anytime that I can do that, I feel like I'm accomplishing something.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm super excited to be doing something with you again. Fun fact for everybody who doesn't know, Kurt and I worked together at Gatsby very briefly. And it was always a really good time when we got to work on a project together. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do that very often. So I'm really excited to kind of kick that back up and let's do this. Let's do this
Yeah, for
for
sure.
real. So what I was
Yeah.
really hoping you could teach me, because I think it's so cool, is I want to get into some kind of like serverless GraphQL stuff. And I thought that would be a perfect thing for you to teach me because I know that you've got a lot of experience doing exactly that. And I also know that AWS has a bunch of fun tools to make this really easy, right?
Yeah. So we've, the team. I say we, but like really the team, the product team has been like working really hard at releasing a lot of cool stuff, and so we actually have two ways that I wanted to approach this. So the first one was using serverless functions within a GraphQL API, and then we can look at like how we would pull that into Gatsby. And then if we have time, on the flip side, I would like to look at the dynamic side of it and calling serverless functions from like within a Gatsby app to do something else, like say submit form data.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I thought that would be a pretty interesting take.
Yeah, I'm way down for that. So what do we need to do to start?
Yeah, so the very first thing that we'll need is a freshly brand spanking new Gatsby project. So just something that
Okay.
we can work with. The default starter should be plenty fine.
All right. So I've got an empty folder here. So let me just run a Gatsby new in this folder and we'll do Gatsby JS, Gatsby starter. Hello. Do the default starter?
Yeah, default starter should be just fine because we're just going to replace a little bit of stuff right in index page, but I doubt we'll get into building too much of a website.
Yeah. Um, Tony, I didn't realize that I scheduled on top of the GitHub announcement. That that worries me. We're going to see our viewership drop sharply when that kicks off. It's all right. This will be up
Well,
on
at
YouTube
least
later.
it'll
You
be
can,
recorded, right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so this should be done here in a second.
So while that's going, I guess maybe I should just like give like a little brief explanation of like the tools that we'll actually be using to do this.
That'd be great.
That might make sense. Yeah, because I'm sure some people watching have probably not used Amplify. So we're going to be using something called the Amplify framework. And Amplify framework is really an umbrella term for a couple different parts. And that is being Amplify CLI, which is essentially how you are able to create, update, delete cloud services, as well as do some other utility type actions like code generation for GraphQL queries, mutations, and subscriptions, setting up Lambda functions, like it's just a lot of stuff like that. You also have AWS Amplify, which is the JS package, and we'll install that, and that's how you can configure your projects and then call certain classes. And then if you really get into it, like since this is a React project, Amplify also has really like good UI packages, like pre-built UI components for
It,
React, Vue, and
and it
Angular.
is that what we're looking at here, or is this
So
the
this is the categories. So the way that Amplify is
okay?
kind of broken up is normally when you're working on a project, the things that you do don't relate like one to one to like AWS service, right? So like authentication might be multiple services that you have to talk to, or if you're setting up an API and you have to connect that to your authentication, right? Like they're generally you're doing like a certain type of workflow. So these are
Mm-hmm.
the categories, and they're kind of broken up to match typical workflows. So like analytics, it would be helping you get everything you need set up to handle analytics.
For sure.
Interactions is like chatbots, things like that. So API would be REST APIs or GraphQL. And if you scroll down a little bit, some of the other more popular ones are like authentication and storage. Those are pretty big.
And now the
XR,
storage, is
which
that going to get into like that's like any database that you want to use, or I guess any database that Amazon offers?
yeah, so you can set up standalone storage like that for database, but also you can set up storage of files. So it can configure S3 for you. And if you have set up authentication, you can connect it to that. So if a user uploads a file, it goes into like their own bucket, and you can define like if it's
Oh, that's
private or
cool.
public or protected. So it's
That's
pretty powerful
Gee,
stuff.
okay. I feel like we're gonna have to do like follow-ups here because this is some
Yeah,
powerful stuff.
we're only going to cover like serverless functions and APIs. We could do a fun follow up where we like build, Gatsby site, upload some images, and some ML stuff was just released. So like you could run images through like recognition, get information about them.
What?
It's
Oh man,
pretty
that's
neat.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
we have votes in the chat for more Kurt, so I think we can definitely we can do some follow-ups
yes,
here. All right, so
nice, awesome.
I've got a site installed. Let me pull up VS Code so that we can look at it. This is the standard starter, so it comes with kind of a base blog setup. So image optimization, it's going to load. It's got some SEO stuff, the manifest for progressive web apps, and optionally a service worker. So what are we looking at here? I think it's just like page one and
It's
page
just
two. Yeah.
exactly. It's just page one and page two. And once we get into actually editing pages, we'll just really be working out of index. We'll kind of just take out this content here and replace it. I had an idea that it might be kind of fun to just like mock out like we were going to create a small little app that would allow people to submit conferences that they like, and then we would just display them on this page, right?
I'm
So
into it.
we'll kind of go through that process, what that looks like, and how we'll use serverless functions. Is once we have our GraphQL API set up,
Yeah.
users would be able to submit the latitude and longitude, and then we'll hit an API to actually fetch the weather for the that conference, right? And so that's
Perfect.
kind of the serverless part,
All right.
I mean, AppSync itself is also serverless, the whole GraphQL API, but this is kind of how you use a serverless function as a field within a GraphQL API.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, awesome. So the first thing we got to do is get essentially let Amplify know that this is going to be an Amplify project.
Okay.
So that starts with installing the Amplify CLI, which is so you want to install it globally,
Okay.
and then or if you're going to use like npx, you could do that. But it's going to be at aws-amplify
AWS dash amplify.
/CLI.
All right.
And so, like I was saying before, this is the CLI that's really like responsible for most of the creation, updating, or deleting of these different like workflows or categories and services that you spin up. And it does this through CloudFormation templates. So for
Mm,
anyone who's not familiar, it's kind of a way to define your infrastructure as code. In this case, YAML files. And the neat thing about this is it's, CloudFormation templates are same thing that's used by like DevOps teams and a lot of other companies. So really all Amplify is doing is writing out these templates for you and saying, oh, well, you have an API and you want users to be authenticated to use it. So I'll draw up, uh, create all the templating and configuration needed. You might have like a FS events thing. If you scroll back to the bottom, it says not to worry about the platform specific binary. Yeah, is it node GIP? You should still be all right. We could just run amplify, hit enter, and let's see.
okay. Let's do a little.
This should go. Oop, okay. So it seems that we're okay.
Okay. Well, let me just cancel that elevator music then. We're good to go. Whoa, what happened here?
That's supposed to say amplify, but I think because it's smashed, it doesn't say it right. But yeah, it's pretty funny. It's just, it's some graffiti, digital graffiti art. All right. So now that we've done that, we have to run amplify init because that's how you essentially like designate a project or folder as an amplify project.
Okay, so amplify init, and
Mhm.
there's a
So
question in the
if this is,
chat
oh, go ahead.
about adding the CLI to the project as a dev dependency. Um, Tony saying that adding it as a dev dependency broke a Gatsby build. Is that like, does it need to be global, or does it?
Oh, that's interesting. So that I honestly I haven't tried adding it as a dev dependency to a Gatsby project, so I really don't know what would happen if you did that. Uh, so yeah, I mean it could potentially break. Oh, no dashes, so it doesn't want dashes in the name, and I think it can only be like 20 something odd characters.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, I mean I can look into that. And all right, so for this, because we're working with like, we will work locally, but normally you're working with remote resources.
Mm-hmm.
Like you wouldn't want to create an API and then be working locally and testing things on it, and then also have like your production data within that API. So
Mm-hmm.
when you create an environment, essentially what happens is all the services or like categories that we create and whatever services get spun up will live within an environment. And then you
Okay.
can create new environments and like switch between them. So you could have like staging, dev, and production. And so that's really all it's for. So you could either do like default, production, master. Those are a couple of the common
Uh,
terms. We're only going to use one for this
okay.
example.
I heard you say dev.
Uh,
That seems reasonable.
yeah, dev sounds
Um,
great.
we are in VS Code. This
Yep.
is a JavaScript project.
Yeah, so it's going to auto detect. It already knows it's React, and it can tell that it's a Gatsby project, so it knows to look in the source. I think you might actually have to change the build commands, but that might be it.
And the source directory, do we want this in source?
Yep. Yeah, so that's like
Okay.
source, like and like
And
when
this
we
is
generate
public.
GraphQL queries and stuff, it would put that within source folder, so it's next to your code.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah. And then Gatsby builds to public, so we'll change that, right?
Yep.
Okay. And the build command is going
And
to be,
would be I believe yarn build, right?
yeah, that works.
And yarn start.
Yarn develop, or is this for like the production serve? Like,
I believe either one is fine. Like that won't actually get used.
okay,
But yeah,
cloud
the build will be
formation.
important for deploy. So yeah, we do want to use an AWS profile. So in order for Amplify CLI to be able to spin up all this infrastructure, it needs a way. Oh, so you've already used had
Yeah,
Amplify
I've had
before.
Nader on the show before, and he has
Okay.
had me set this
Yeah,
up, and I don't know that I know what any of these are.
I would stick with Amplify, the one called Amplify. That's probably the one that you want. Yeah, so what this is like a user with API permissions and
Mm,
administrative access that can programmatically create these services for you.
nice.
Right. So for anyone who has not done that, essentially what would happen is you would have been prompted to open up the console and the CLI would walk you through the steps to create the proper user.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is just going to like initialize. Yeah, cool. All right. So all that did really to start is just like say, so if you look back in VS Code, you'll see there's an Amplify folder. And then also
Into
in
VS
source, there's
Code.
this AWS exports file. So both of those
Okay.
things are important.
And
So
now,
as
is
we
there
add
anything in here that?
categories, go
Yeah, go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I was going to ask, can you walk us through what each of these files is?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So .config is just some Amplify specific configuration
Now,
that will
will
be in.
I, as a developer, ever need to go in here?
You will not, but where you will need to go in would be under backend. So as we add APIs
Okay.
and functions, more and more code will be generated here. But like when you want to edit the schema, that would end up here. Some of
Okay.
you won't have to touch the backend config. There's really little stuff that needs to be touched by you, but all that
Okay.
stuff also will be offered up to you. So like when we add an API, it will say, do you want to edit the schema? You hit yes, it will open up the
Mm,
schema in VS Code for you.
slick.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
And now,
AWS, oh, go ahead.
well, so this is cloud formation, right? Like this is all the kind of
Yep.
the config for AWS. Now, historically, this has been really opaque because, as everybody can see here, this is not like an easy to parse uh, config file. But this is kind of what Amplify is taking care of, right? It's removing our need to know how this works.
Yes. Yeah. It's to create that higher level abstraction so that you don't have to have that deep knowledge of cloud formation just to be able to use infrastructure as code
Guys,
and
please
and have these like redeployable and shareable projects.
get that config out of here. All right.
Get it
So,
out. That's right. Yeah.
all right. And so what ended up in this AWS exports?
So right now, just the region. That's
Okay.
the region that was associated to that Amplify user. Yeah, so as we start to add more things, the important configuration, like in API, the URL, API key, stuff like that would start to pop up in here. If it was
Cool.
storage, S3 buckets. And as you can see, it's like grayed out because it's get ignored. So this is
Mm-hmm.
like just local to your project. It wouldn't need to be shared. And
Gotcha.
then, we'll mess around with some keys and stuff, but like, you would just move those out into environment variables.
Dig it. All
Yeah.
right. So we've got the project initialized, and I think we're ready to build a thing.
Yeah, I think we should build a thing. So if we jump back into the terminal, let's first thing we're going to do is build the function,
Okay.
serverless function, and then we'll create an API to actually use that in.
Okay.
So for this, you're just going to run amplify add function. And so that's the way it works when you want to add like a new category, a new workflow. You just use add and then followed by that category name.
Sick. Okay. And what is
So
our
yeah, so this is the label. This is essentially what the function will be called and how you will access it. And what we're going to
okay?
be doing is using this serverless function to get the weather for a conference location. So let's just call it weather.
And I don't need there's no extension. It's just a
No,
okay.
just that works fine. And then, yep, we're gonna same thing as the function name.
Okay.
It's good to just keep them identical. So for this, we're going to choose hello world function. You do notice though that there's other operations. So if
Yeah.
you already knew, it's totally fine. We'll go through that again later. But you
Sorry,
can like
here's me
set
hitting
up,
all my buttons.
no worries, a serverless express app, and it will create all of the initial boilerplate for you. So you can just go in and add routes to the app. And then when you push it, you have serverless express app running. So there's a
Sick.
lot of options, but for this one, we'll stick with the hello world. And then do we want other access? It doesn't matter. We don't have any. So you can just hit enter.
Okay.
And so what that's saying is like maybe if we had an API or storage like a database or S3, you could say, yes, I want it to access these other resources, and it would
So
provide the necessary information within the Lambda function for
so
you.
like as an
And
example, if this serverless function was going to save, like if this was like for comments or something, if I wanted to
yes,
post a comment, I would have the Lambda function access the database where the comments
yep,
would be stored.
exactly.
Awesome. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So
Category.
we have no categories because we haven't set anything up before this. So that's why
Okay.
there's no option. So you can just hit enter. But
Okay.
if we did have set up storage like a Dynamo DB table to handle comments, then you would connect it to that.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Do I want to edit it now? I assume the answer to that is yes.
Yes. The answer to that is yes.
Press enter to continue.
So it should open up inside of VS Code wherever you have that at.
Oh, I think it opened in the wrong thing.
Well, if we go to backend function source, weather source index.js, this is what
Yeah.
it would open up. It might be that. Do you have the
I have
code?
yeah, so this is my my teach profile. And then I have another one that I run other things off of that is my code profile. So it just opened in the other profile. So
Gotcha.
that's not an Amplify thing. That's because I have weird settings. But so it would have opened this for us.
Yeah, so it would
And
open this right up for us, and this is like the bare bones, essentially hello world function. If we went ahead and deployed this, and then you called weather from within your application somewhere, there's multiple ways to call the API. We'll look at that, but you would just get hello world returned to
okay.
you, right?
And
Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just going to ask you, what do we want to do next? Do we want to deploy this and try it, or do you want to get that weather data in?
I was going to say we get this set up for the weather data, and then we'll create the GraphQL API because that's how we're going to access it anyway. And
Yeah,
then we'll deploy that. And actually, we're going to mock it. We're going to look at these locally before we even deploy them. And
perfect.
then we'll push them out once we're happy with it.
I enjoy that. Where should we start?
Yeah. So since we're going to call an API, we're going to need a library to do that. So in
Okay.
here, you could, we'll just use Axios. So you can just
Okay.
require in Axios, and I'll show you how to install that in a second.
Oh, like we're just straight up gonna
Yeah, and just like const, yeah, Axios, you got it.
what? And it's just gonna know.
No, we're gonna install the package, but we have to cd down into weather source and then run npm install from there.
Okay, I gotcha.
So I feel like we'll just go through. We'll set this up, then we'll install it, and then we'll mock it out, and we'll make sure it all works.
Yeah. Um, hey, anti-pixelated. That's why you got to bring up old stuff. My stream yesterday, I couldn't figure out how to work Axios. I burned like 10 minutes using the wrong property name. Okay,
Well,
so
this should be okay this time then. Yeah,
yeah, it's fresh in my memory.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so with this, do we? What's the weather API you wanted to hit?
Yeah, so I'm going to send you the URL.
Okay.
And oh. So this is just like somebody else. So you don't really need like, an API key. So this is like from the free code camp. They just use this for projects. So please, everyone, don't go and like, start hitting this API 1,000 times, or you'll limit the API. But I sent it to you in
Yeah, I just got it. All
cool.
right, so there's our weather
Yeah.
glitch app.
Yep. And so what we're going to do is once we pull in the data, we're going to change the lat and longitude to match that from our conferences.
Okay,
Right. So, but the essentially we'd call axios.get and pass in the URL.
and now
And
do I want to turn these into params?
yes, I would, oh, actually, no, sorry. So I would go back and instead of doing that, make it like a string template.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And then we're going to replace just lat and lon with variables called lat and lon.
And are these going to come out of the event?
Yeah. So I was just going to talk about this next. So when you're dealing with GraphQL and you're on a field, oftentimes you'll want to access the data that, like the sibling data that's related. Right. So, like in this case, in order to get the latitude and longitude, off of a field, we would probably have something like location, right? And then pull that off. But we haven't created our schema yet, so we don't really know what that looks like just yet. So I think at this point, so let's do this. Let's get rid of those console logs.
Get rid of the console logs.
Yeah, we're not going to need them. And then,
Okay.
so that's a promise. So let's do .then on our Axios call. And so here, we're going to have,
Let me clean
out
this
of
up
our
a little bit
result,
so
we're
we can
going to
actually
want to
see it.
pull two properties. And so I'm going to give you
And so is this correct? Like it's going to be event.lat or
event.source first, and then it's going to be so source is the actual fields that would be on it, so it would be dot location because they're going to be on a property called location, so
okay,
that's what it will.
cool.
And we'll see how that looks in a minute. So yeah, so here under the response, we're going to want to get the temperature, which will be under result.data
Or result. That's a
or
good. Yeah.
response.data. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, whatever. I'll do what makes sense to you, because what I found is that when I try to get clever, it goes poorly, as you can tell by the salty chat right now.
It's so funny. So
Um,
yeah, .data.main.temp.
main temp.
So that's going to be our temperature.
Okay.
So I guess you could save that to a variable. And then the next thing we're just going to get is the description. So
Okay.
that's going to be result dot data dot weather, which is an array, and we want the first element inside of that, and dot description.
Okay.
So like if you call this API, I'm just like shortcutting this, but it just returns
Sure.
a big JSON blob. It has other stuff like visibility and wind, but we're just going to do that. And then I just put together a little string that said, the current temperature is, and then space description. So like kind of like a string to return.
Did
Here, let
I
me
did I just sorry, did I screw something up?
no. So like
Oh,
on a
okay,
new
cool.
line, we're going to convert that into basically like, human readable string.
Uh maybe tell me
So,
what you one more time,
so
sorry.
say like, no worries. So say const weather equals, and then we're going to do a string template. The current temperature is, and then we'll put in temp
Temp.
and then put in description, because the
Ah.
description just kind of gives you an overview of what the weather is like.
And do I need to
Now,
include punctuation here, or is it gonna?
I mean, I don't think so for this example. I'm sure it's fine. You could if you want to.
YOLO. Uh,
Yeah. So now we're going to take that context dot done and we're going to move that up inside.
okay, and so now the format here is. Can I read
It's
this?
like a standard node callback. So that's going to be error first and then results.
Okay,
So yeah, in this case,
and are
it's
we just sending
null and
back the
then
weather?
weather. Yep.
Dig
Now we're going to have
it.
to do a catch. Yeah, you got it. And then we're going to want to return the error if we should hit one.
Okay, and so that would be context dot done error, right?
Yeah, just like that.
Okay.
So now we have a function that, given it gets a latitude and longitude from a location on the source, it will make a call out to the API, get the temperature and the description, and return that as the result. So that's
Okay.
good. We can save that.
Saved.
Yeah, nice. All right. So the very next step is to add an API. So we're going to go back to the command line because we want to be able to call this.
Well, do we need to install Axios first?
Oh, thank you. Good call. Yes, we do. So you can hit continue.
Okay.
All right. And then we're going to CD down into that. So it's going to be amplify, backend.
Function weather source.
Yep. And then just npm install Axios. Cool.
Okay. There it is. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. So that takes care of that. And then when your function gets deployed, it will also install Axios and it will work. So we can go back up to the root of the project.
Here.
It's like 4 or 5.
One more.
2 more. One more.
Oh God. All right, we in the right place? All right, here we go.
Yeah. So now from here, we're going to run amplify add API.
Add API.
Yeah. So would ask you a couple questions. Like, first and foremost, do you prefer, which do you want, GraphQL or REST? So we want GraphQL.
Okay.
And so we could call this like conferences or like whatever you would want to call this app sync. Name it after the project because it's going to be.
Let's call it conf weather so I remember what I did.
Yeah.
That seems right.
We're going to use API key for the access type because it should just be, just the app calls out to it, but nobody else needs to log in to see the conferences.
Got it.
So what this is saying is like, do you already have an annotated schema? So if you're familiar with Amplify, or maybe the schema is something that is generated before you're actually running this, you could do that. In this case, we don't.
Okay.
So no is the default, so you can just hit enter.
Okay.
Yes, we want a guided schema creation, so we're going to create the
Absolutely.
GraphQL
Yes, I
schema
do.
here. Yep. And for this, we just want a single object with
Okay.
fields. We don't have really any relationships currently, so that's fine. And yeah, we want to edit the schema now. So this might pop open in your other workspace, but we can get right to this file. So go ahead and hit yes.
Okay. And that did open up in my other workspace.
Which is fine. So if you
So
close up that function folder in backend, now you'll see there's also an API folder. So if you open that in
ooh,
schema.graphql, this is the file that we're going to edit.
slick.
And so that's why I was saying it's like, yes, there's a lot of stuff in there, but it's generally very specific, the thing that you'll be going in and touching. And it gets opened up for you. So here we're not going to have we're going to have a conference.
Conference. I
I would
assume
say we
this.
could keep. Yeah, you want to keep the ID. And so we don't have to create those ourselves. If it does not have an ID property with it, like in a mutation, it will create the ID for you. So you don't have to worry about that. We'll
Awesome.
keep name and description because those are things a conference should have. But now we're going to add location
Location.
of a type location, and we'll create that here.
Okay. And the type
So yeah,
location. Does this need any
so
decorators?
no decorators. And I'm going to cover what app model is here in 1 second.
Cool.
So for this, we'll just do, lat and long. And
And
if you want to, so this would be, I would pick float because normally it can't lats and longs
that was
be
what I was
floats.
looking for. I was like, what's the GraphQL type for
Yeah.
this? Are there any others in here?
I mean, if you want to, you could put something like address and put like the actual like written address. But for our example, no, you don't really
All
need
right, let's
anything else.
let's let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to take a second to talk about this model. It is a directive, but really what it is under the hood for Amplify is what we call GraphQL transform.
Okay.
And so Amplify knows how to detect these certain type of directives and then add added functionality. So because we're saying that conference is a model, that means that it's a data structure that we want to track. So we actually need something to sort in. We have a GraphQL API, but we need a way to create, like do the CRUD operations
I
on
got
a
you.
conference. So it will
Okay.
create the DynamoDB table in the background for us without us having to do anything with those given fields.
Okay, I got you. Um, that's awesome. So then
Yeah. There's other
from
awesome ones too, like connections. So you can connect to another model, the authentication
oh,
one, which is like a whole episode we could do on its own because you can do some really cool, like granular stuff with authentication.
I would very much love to do that because that would be super exciting. Oh hey,
Yeah.
Amberly joined the chat. What's up, Amberly?
Hey,
Ooh, and we got a subscriber, JTMC. Awesome.
nice.
That is very cool. Thanks, y'all. Kurt, I think we got ourselves an API. How do we make it API?
Yeah. So now we're going to go back to the command line. And we want to make sure that all this stuff is going to work properly. We want to kind of test it out, right? So you can go ahead and hit continue. And now, if we were ready to, so see how it says amplify push. If we were ready to push this
Mm-hmm.
out to the cloud, that's what we would run. We'd run amplify push, and then those CloudFormation templates would get fully created and pushed out to AWS, and our services would actually be live. But first, we want to kind of test it out locally. So
Okay.
we're actually going to run amplify mock.
Ooh, secret commands.
Ooh, just a new command. It's just newly released, and so there's documentation on it and a couple blog posts. But
No. What have I done? Java. Oh dear.
that
What
was
is?
interesting. Failed to start API mock endpoint. Max retries hit for starting. Oh, DynamoDB emulator. So hit Control C and let's try that again. It seems like you got some kind of a Java thing going on here. It uses SQLite. under the hood
Hmm.
for the DynamoDB mocking.
I wonder if I don't have the correct things installed
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I don't have this.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Interesting. So you'd have to hit OK and like install it. Did it
yeah.
give you, is it giving you more info? Did that pop up somewhere?
It nope, it did nothing.
Well,
maybe I gotta do
that's
the more info.
oh, I missed that. I thought it did say I thought it
Yeah, I
said
think
hit
that,
OK for more
that it was
info.
one of those kind of like very confusing things. It's not like, hey, do you want to fix this? It's like, okay, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so that gives me this. This is what I'm getting. Oh dear.
Oh, so you don't have like the Java at all on this
Apparently
workspace.
not. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
that I've used
So
that.
we don't have to mock it locally. We can actually not do that if you don't want to install Java. That's totally fine.
I will probably do that not on a stream because I have a feeling that's going to require some things that could potentially break this.
Probably restarts
Yeah,
probably
things that
take
I
a
don't
while.
want to
Okay.
do on the middle of a stream.
So
So
what would happen if we could mock? And I'll actually release a small video later today showing an example of what mocking
that
looks
would
like.
be
I'll just
awesome.
yeah. So what it would do though is basically mock out the API and the Lambda function calls. It would open up graphical locally, running on your local machine, and basically give you the explorable. I mean, anything you can do in graphical. So it would allow you to run queries and mutations, and you would see them, but it wouldn't be pushed to a remote resource. It would actually just be in a data folder right here in Amplify under API. And you can also mock out storage like S3 and a couple other things. But essentially, that's what would happen. So since we can't do that, in order to do the next step,
Okay.
what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the command line and run amplify push.
Amplify push.
So this is going to give you a little table of the state of all of
buckets, did
the
that just work?
categories that you've configured or set up. And just to make sure that everything's there. So here we have a function, right? And we have API. Oh, you know what? We're going to have to re-push again. Actually, hit Control C real quick.
Control C.
Yeah. Bring back up the schema. We never added our weather. I got too far ahead of
We got
myself.
so excited.
I got so excited. And we're going to use another directive. So go ahead and add a new field called weather.
Weather.
Yeah. And then that's going to be a string.
Okay.
And we won't say it's required, but now we're going to put a space and you're going to say at function.
Oh.
And, oh, that's right. Open it up kind of like calling a function. So parentheses, and then a string, and it's going to be weather dash. So it gets a little tricky here. Dollar sign, like you're doing a template literal, dollar curly brace, env, and close that curly brace. So the function name itself is weather, but technically when you're in a given environment, like we're in dev, it would say it would really be weather dash dev is like the name and how it will be accessed. So the dash, the M variable just takes care of it for you. You never have to like input or change the name or track it anywhere. So
Okay.
cool.
Oh, and so like now, yeah. So
just work.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I added a holy buckets command. So now whenever something works, people can say it like has a recording of me saying, "Hey, did that just work?" And people are redeeming it. But so just to recap this, what this is doing is whenever we push this function, it's being saved as weather dash whatever the environment was that we saved it as. So I created dev.
Exactly. And if
So
you look
this
at
is
like
saved as
when we
weather
push,
dash dev. Awesome. Okay.
yeah,
And so
and the same thing will happen for the API. So like our app sync API name will be conf weather dash dev.
okay.
Technically. All right. Yeah. So now we can run push. Now we're good to run push.
Yeah. So let's do amplify push.
Mm-hmm.
And we have.
Yeah, and so I'll just talk about this again. So the operation is what it's going to do. So because this is our first time pushing, it's going to create both the function and the API. So the provider plugin This is kind of interesting and something not a lot of people know about. So the Amplify CLI is built. Oh, let me check the syntax on that real quick. Might be. I have it open somewhere. I'm just opening up code and then, sorry. So, okay. So
Holy buckets,
inside
did
of
that just
the
work?
schema where we have the function.
Got it?
Yeah. So before weather env, before the string,
Mm-hmm.
at the very beginning, you're going to put name colon. I forgot. It's like a named property. Yeah.
Got
My
it.
bad.
Okay.
Okay. Let's try that again.
Here we go.
But so, yeah. So like I was saying, it's like, it's actually the CLI is built on a plugin system. And there we go. So GraphQL schema compiled successfully.
Nice.
Yeah, and so now it's saying, do you want to generate code? So we won't need these queries right now, or mutations or subscriptions, but let's go ahead and generate it anyway because it's fun to see. So
Yeah.
just hit yeah, and it'll ask you like
JavaScript.
what kind. So yeah, we just want JavaScript because we're not typed, and then
And
that's
I
why
don't
it
know
knows
enough
about
about
source. So
TypeScript
it
to
will
do
put these
this.
queries in source/GraphQL. So that's cool.
Okay.
And then yeah, let's generate all the things. And then this last one is statement depth. So like how deep into the kind of like GraphQL tree will you go? Like how many entities down are you allowed to dig, if that makes sense?
So to give a practical example of that, if we had blog posts and authors, I would be able to query for a blog post and then get the author and then get that author's blog posts and then potentially get the blog posts from the author, get those authors and just like go forever. And we're just setting a
That
maximum depth, right?
Yeah, this is actually preventing that from being possible. Yeah.
Got it.
So you could
So this
get
says
blog posts
two.
and authors, but then you couldn't get anything really below except the fields directly off author.
So if I wanted like if I went three, then we could get blog post, author, blog posts, but not
Yep.
the fourth level down. Okay, that seems
Yep.
reasonable. I'll say
Yeah.
three. That suits my sensibilities.
Yeah, and it's pretty neat. And so it could be configured. So now this is going to take a minute because it's actually spinning up AppSync API, setting up the serverless function, and doing all of that remotely. So, like I was saying just a second ago about the plugin system, is you can actually create custom plugins for the Amplify CLI. So, if your company is using AWS services that are not currently supported, like a workflow that's not supported, like live streaming video, you want to be able to embed live stream videos, and there is a plugin that already exists for that. But you can create that. So, and it
Okay.
doesn't even really have to be AWS specific, right? Like if you want to use, it's meant to be able to use with other cloud providers as well. We just haven't
Okay.
seen those plugins being created yet, but you could. So like you
Nice.
could actually run, add function and then choose like to use an Azure plugin or something like that.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah. 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 So the goal is to make it a lot easier to kind of build these kind of full stack serverless apps where you don't really have to do anything but write the production code. That's kind of the goal.
Yeah,
Like
that's
the
super
product.
cool.
Yeah.
Holy buckets. Did that just work?
Yeah. And so this is the boring part where it's just like, I'm going to create a bunch of stuff. But I do want to note that when you look at how much work it's doing, like this used to be people doing this, or at least writing this configuration to do this. And so that gets, very tedious. This can be a real time saver. And if we look back at the AWS exports and source directory, we can take a look at more of the configuration that was added because that will be important. So that's in our source code.
Source directory
AWS exports JS.
here.
Yep. Oh, because it's still building. It's actually, as soon as the push finishes, this will, there we go.
There it goes.
Yeah. So now we have our AppSync endpoint and there's the API key, right? And so that's how you access it. So let's go ahead and put some conferences in our GraphQL API so we can pull them into Gatsby.
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable, right?
Yes. How would one do such a thing?
Yeah, that's okay. So if we go back to the terminal, pretty much everything revolves around this command line when you're working with Amplify.
Okay.
So now we're going to run another cool command called amplify. And then we're going to say the category API and then space console. And what this will do is allow us to open right up to our API in AWS console. So we don't have to dig around in AWS console to find it. So GraphQL.
Okay. Let me pull this
Did it
over.
open somewhere else?
It opened in my other window here, so let me switch over here. And now I get to figure out what my
Yeah, how to log in.
stuff is. I have one of these somewhere. I think that's right. Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
cool.
Cool.
So it
zoom
opened
out
it
a
up
little
for
bit
us.
here.
It's already set to use the API key, right? And so if we take a look at the docs, we can kind of see what is available to us.
And we want a mutation because we're adding, right?
So we have the mutations here. So we have create conference, update conference. And if we wanted to, we could also open up to the database table to take a look at the data.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. And so we want the input, and that input is going to be a name, and
a name.
I think we'll call this KurtConf.
Yeah.
Oh, it needs to
I've
be
always
double
wanted
quoted.
my own conference.
Everybody just it's all keto meals and push-ups, and then eventually we'll do like 5 minutes of code, but then more push-ups.
Yeah. That's really funny. We might try a handstand. You never know. That's amazing.
Okay. Then we've got, I don't need.
All right.
What else do I need?
Yeah, so really
Location.
we need the location. And so for this Latin long, so if you just want to use one, I was just using 35 and 139 because that's what was in the exam.
35, 139.
Yeah. I
And
don't even
then
know where that is.
and so
Somebody want
weather
to
I'm
Google
leaving
it?
out,
What is
right?
that? Yeah. So whether, we don't add that will just get given to us later. So this is fine. So we should be able to create this.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's query for that same conference. And so to do that, it would be, I believe it's list conferences is going to be the query.
And we'll get the name. Nope.
So
Items.
it's actually going to be items. Yep.
Name.
And then name, description, and weather.
Yup. What happened? Go away.
So what we've done here is essentially is reading the Latin long right off of the fields and passing that into the serverless function, and then we're querying for the API, and we can see that the current temperature is 28.3, and there's broken clouds. So that's it. So it's set up, right? So that's working. So we have an example. So now let's pull this into Gatsby. That's what we really want to do is we want people to be able to just to be able to see these conferences.
Absolutely. So am I doing that like here? Do I want to pull this out?
So we will pull that data out, but not just yet. I mean, we're going to use the Gatsby source GraphQL because that's the great thing about AppSync is like if we wanted to, we could also use the React helpers or the API helper to access this API. But at the end of the day, it's just a GraphQL endpoint. So we can treat it like any other. Well, that was weird.
That is. Oh, no.
No such file or directory. We've broken your.
Where am I?
Where am I? That seems right.
Yeah, this is correct. Holy crap! Did that Java thing break my? Okay,
but we didn't install anything.
That one
Did
works.
mocking break?
Whatever. We're just gonna use that. We'll do npm install Gatsby source GraphQL.
Yeah, that was weird.
Okay.
I wonder what that is.
Oh, what up? Chris DeMars just joined the chat. What's up, dude?
Hey,
And it
so
looks
many
like we've
people.
got Emiojo. I'm getting your name so wrong. I apologize, but that's a first-time streamer. So cool. It's good to see you. Good
Oh,
to see
that's
you here.
awesome.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
I love seeing so many people in here. We've got
I know.
you've got great attendance, Kurt. You're doing you're bringing the crew.
That's awesome. Crew
Okay, so
represent.
that's
Oh, and I'm just glad we were able to get the live stream in. So for everyone on, my whole family is sick right now, and it's starting to get me. But I was like, we can do this. We got to get it done. So if I sound nasally, that's why.
yeah. I got a message from Kurt this morning. He was like, "Hey man, I don't think I can do this." And then he was like, "Wait, I can do this. I got a babysitter. Wait, I have strep. Wait, I can still do this." It was an emotional roller coaster this morning.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Amberly, you don't have to choose. You can be on everybody's team.
Yeah, Team Kurt don't die. I want to be on that team.
Team Kurt, don't die.
Man,
Okay.
that took a really long time.
It really did. I wonder if I've had some issues with my computer not quite keeping up with demands, but no, it looks fine.
Or
It's
it could
only
just be
running at
like
like
none of it
50%
was really
CPU.
that cached. Maybe it wasn't cached for you.
All
Okay,
right.
we got it. So now we can go into the config. And yeah, we're going to add that. It's going to have some options. So we'll want to add
Stick
it
it up
like
at the
with
top,
the
so.
whole object syntax and resolve.
Okay.
And so for the options, the first one, URL, and
Yeah.
that will come out of that AWS exports, and that's going to be the app sync URL that's in that file.
Okay. And now
So
here's a question. When we do this build, if we're building on the cloud, but this is get ignored, how is it going to get this data? Would we have to like put that into nvars or something?
yeah. So normally
Okay.
you would keep this in environment variables.
Gotcha. But for now, we're not
Right.
going to do that. So, or is
Yeah,
that
it's just an example. So yeah.
okay? So I'm going to say AWS, and we're going to require source AWS exports,
Cool.
and then
Cool,
I
cool,
should be
cool.
able to do AWS dot.
I can't remember
Here,
what it would be.
AWS.
I think it's just right
Hey,
under
look at it
the
auto
deport. So it
completing.
would be, yeah, app sync GraphQL endpoint.
Do I need to do that though?
Yeah. Yes, you do.
Oh,
Apparently.
because it's doing an
Oh,
ES6
right.
export.
It's the default. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we got that.
That confused me. All right. Yeah. So now we're also going to do headers.
Headers.
Yeah. And then this is going to be X API key.
API. Is it like this?
I think they all get lowercase anyway, but that's just like
We'll
that.
just leave lowercase then. Okay, and
And
then
then that is going to be to the .default .api key. Should be in there somewhere.
got it.
Boom. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is say type name, and we'll make that conference. And then field name. Yeah, yeah. And we'll make that conferences. Boom shakalaka. Let's spin her up. That's it.
I broke it. Now it's not.
You broke it.
All right. Let's are you're really gonna give me this now? Oh man.
So annoying.
That is killing me. I'll have to figure out what the hell happened.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I broke your computer.
No.
What is going on?
Unexpected token. Oh, don't be like that.
I bet they're mixing the exports. This is the Gatsby 101.
Okay,
so,
fine. We'll put it in.
I would just copy
environment
them out,
variables.
maybe. Yeah.
.env.development, and then we're gonna go in here and we're gonna get the endpoint, and we'll call this AWS GraphQL endpoint. and then AWS AppSync API key. And we'll grab
I dig
that.
it.
Drop that in. Okay. And so then we need require .env, and we're going to config with the path, and the path is going to be template string, so .env, and process env node env, I think.
Boom. I think so,
We
right?
will find out very quickly if that's correct, and then we'll swap this out. AWS GraphQL endpoint and env.aws appsync API key. That was right? AppSync 8. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go again.
Let's see what happens.
No immediate explosions. That's good.
Holy buckets! Did that just work?
Okay. Okay.
Come on, little buddy.
You can do it. Hey, all right. So let's open up graphical. This is my favorite part.
Holy buckets! Did that just work?
Graphical.
Boom.
We've got
And
our
now,
Explorer, so I'm going to go
conferences. See it.
conferences, list
So
conferences.
maybe we should have said all conferences to keep
That's
it.
all
But
right.
whatever.
We'll go
Yeah.
with name. I'm just going to go name and weather for now, so let's do that.
Yeah.
Get rid of these. Oh, this is from yesterday's stream. Yesterday, we built a source plugin using the Meetup API, and it was awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so that was what that query was. If you want to see that, check the YouTube playlist because it's there.
What?
What? All right.
Yeah. Now. Yeah. So now we're in
we did it.
Gatsby world, and our data is being sourced out of AppSync.
Later, EcoMath. Thanks for stopping by. So this is sick, man. All right. So we've got ourselves a working endpoint. We're pulling it into Gatsby. We are able to build things from it. So let's, I guess, let's do that. Let's pull it in. I'm gonna pull in GraphQL from Gatsby, and then we will export default query const. Nope, not default. Definitely not default. Export const query, and that's going to be GraphQL. And let's just grab this query straight across.
I was gonna say, yeah, grab it right out of graphical. Gotta love
Let's
it.
get that description too.
Why not?
So then we're going to get data, and we'll change this out to cool conferences.
Boom.
And we can get rid of, let's get rid of everything for now. And we will say an unordered list. We will take data.conferences.items.map. I think that's right. Data.conferences.
It should be conferences, list conferences.
List conferences dot items dot map. Okay. Then we'll get a conference. And in here, we also need an ID because I need a key. So I'm going to set up a li with a key of conf ID. Then we'll do an h2 with conf.name. And we'll set a paragraph, and it'll be conf.description. And finally, oh, we already did the current weather thing, so we can just put in conf.weather.
Yeah.
All right. So that now, I believe,
Should be there.
that just
snap.
works. What is up, y'all? I mean, I feel pretty solid about that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And so now that so now you have the mutations. So like, in theory, you could just submit GraphQL mutations, and people could add their own conferences. It's pretty cool. So I think from this point, we've got something that's built and working.
Mm-hmm.
You want to maybe put it out on the internet? You want to deploy it?
Absolutely, I do.
Yes.
Dab
the internet,
command.
which is
Everybody wants a dab command. I do
Yes.
have a animated GIF of me dabbing, which
Oh, that's
I
amazing.
I
You should
shouldn't have
definitely
made.
do a
I
dab
made it.
command.
I don't know why I did that. All right, so we're gonna put this on the internet. How would one do such a thing?
Yeah. So the very first thing that we got to do is get it into a GitHub repository because we're going to connect that to something
Whoa!
called Amplify Console.
I was shouting in my console. Let's
Yeah.
see. Get
And
ignore
we
looks
don't want
okay.
that env.development. But it's good that we already put uh, the API key and endpoint into environment variables because we'll move those over to Amplify Console.
Okay, so we're gonna get rid of that. Get status again. Those are gone. And so if I do like a git add all, what do we get? We got our pages. This and all this GraphQL stuff can go. Now,
Yeah. So honestly, we
theoretically, we
don't
don't need
really need
any
it,
of
but it can
this.
definitely go. I just
Yeah.
wanted to show that it will auto generate all the queries, subscriptions, and mutations for you
And
inside of
let's take
GraphQL.
a quick look here just so we can see. Um,
Yeah.
so this is create conference. So we would be able to just pull that out and then add some variables and pass this in because
Exactly.
it's looking for an input variable. Update, delete. We can get a single conference or list all conferences. We've got a full schema, and then we can also do real-time updates using subscriptions, which is super cool.
Yeah. So yeah, in theory, you could just use effect, set up a subscription, and have the conferences coming in real time. Amplify Console supports webhooks, so we could also kick off builds like programmatically.
Why did it
But
stage
yeah.
development?
Oh, that's weird. Oh, do you have to
Okay.
do dot star, dot m dot star, or
Yeah,
dot
oh, I
n
bet I
star?
did. Yeah, you're correct. That's what I should have done. All right, let's see this again. Okay, so now it's not showing up. If I git add all and git status, let's just make sure that it's not there. It is not. Okay, and the rest of this can go. All the amplify stuff, I'm going to
Yes,
trust
that's
amplify to
supposed to
set its
go.
own git ignore.
Yep.
That's all stuff that we want. Good, good,
Mhm.
good. So I'm going to commit, and let's do it this way because I'm going to add you to this. I've been meaning to start doing this, and we built a serverless GraphQL app. Committed. Oh, wait. Is it co-authored by? I think so.
I think so.
Co-authored by.
Yeah.
What's your GitHub email?
K. Just Curtis Kemple at gmail.com.
Okay.
Emails incoming, inbound.
I know. This is my real plan is just to get you spammed. We did this yesterday with Brittany Ball, and it was like, please don't abuse my email. And I've got the hub commands installed from GitHub, so I'm going to create a repo, and then I'm
Very
going to
cool.
push master.
Spam cannon. Oh, that's amazing.
And now we can get browse. That's another hub command, and that'll open this up. So I did it right. You got the commit credit.
Hey.
And we did it. We got ourselves a working site with the Amplify stuff. So how do we
Yeah.
get this up on the interwebs?
So we got to go to the AWS console.
Do
And
I guess I already have that
so
open,
from the
don't I?
yeah, you already have it open. So here we want to go to services in the very top header.
Got it.
We're going to a new service and just start typing amplify and it should filter down. There we go. So, you already have an app. Oh, because you built the Game of Thrones app. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's what Nodder and I did. Yeah, we did that. There's if you want to see how we built this app, go to the YouTube channel and look for the Learn with Jason playlist, and you can watch that get built live.
Yeah. So now we're just going to connect the app.
Okay. From here.
GitHub is I think
Okay.
the whole thing. Yeah. And then we're going to hit continue.
GitHub auth was successful. I've already done that. And now we want this one.
Yeah.
Branch will be
And
master.
branch, we only have master. Yeah.
Slick.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Pretty neato. Okay, so this one. Do we want it to use resources? So what this means, the wording, I guess, could basically be, would you like to use an existing environment? So if you click that drop down, you see how we have dev there? We're going to go ahead and use that because we've already got some data inside of it.
Okay.
And then the second one is, again, for Amplify console to make these changes on your behalf, there has to be a user, just like the CLI. So you've already set one up. And if not, it's got that box right below it. It will walk you through creating a new role, but we can use that one.
For the sake of showing everyone how this would work, let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to create a new role.
Let's do it.
And I'm selecting my use case, setting permissions.
Yep. And you shouldn't have to change anything. It should pre-select everything for you. This is just if you wanted to tag it, like if you have a lot of roles and you have a way to organize them.
Okay.
In this case, you probably don't need it.
Yeah,
and then next is just previewing it.
I will say conf weather so that I know what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then create role.
And now we're done.
Yeah. So now if we jump back into the window and hit that little refresh button.
Conf weather.
Hey. For the build settings, you don't have to touch anything here. However, if you did say want to run tests or do something else, before you built and deployed, you could do that in the pre-build commands, like after you yarn install. You could also do after you build, like maybe Cypress end-to-end tests or something.
Oh yeah. I am curious. So does AWS have Yarn installed by default?
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll just work then.
Oh yeah, that'll just work.
Okay.
And it knows you're in a Gatsby project. So see how it says Gatsby Amplify?
That's also sick. Very cool.
Yeah. So under advanced settings, if you had a different build image you wanted to use for your build container, you would put it there. But here we do need to add those two environment variables.
Boy, am I glad I clicked that button. I was like, we probably don't need these.
I was going to tell you. Yeah, I was going to tell you.
You're always looking out for me, Kurt. I appreciate you.
Hey, I'm the navigator. It's my job. Right?
Okay.
Boom.
And that's that, right? We save and deploy.
Just making sure it's good to go. Hit save and deploy.
Party. No. What? Get out of my house. Okay.
I didn't know that.
I guess we're going to fix this. We will call this just GraphQL endpoint and AppSync API key.
That's wild. I didn't even know about that.
Okay. And then in here, we're also going to fix that. And in here,
which is totally fine. So we'll just push a new build. It shouldn't matter. Or you can just do it now.
Yeah, YOLO. Okay. Get pushing to master. Here we go.
Woohoo! It's not Friday yet, though.
That's true.
You're a day early.
All right, so now this should work. So I'm going to save and deploy.
Yeah.
How we doing?
Well, we didn't get any errors. So
Didn't get any errors. Okay.
#progress. Yay. All right. So it's going to provision, build the back end out first because we specified it as an Amplify project. Then it will build the front end. Then it will deploy it and give us, we already have a URL, but we'll be able to view it there. And then by verify, it will take snapshots of the site on a couple different browser sizes and just kind of display that to you. So if you want, I just wanted to take a quick second to talk about a couple of these menu options on the left while that's building.
Yeah.
So for domain management, you can set up custom domains. So if you purchase a domain in Route 53, you can set it up. You can set up from other places as well, but that's the fastest way to do it. Build settings. Let's go under there. So this would just be where you would change later on if you added tests or something like that. And if you scroll down a little bit, incoming webhooks. So
Ooh.
this is where you could say, like, if you were using, Contentful or like whatever, CMS or
Mm-hmm.
Drupal, Shopify, you would add incoming webhooks to kick off builds. So it will now already build every time you push to master automatically.
And so like
Um,
I feel like so we did this so fast that I feel like we might not be properly communicating how exciting
yeah.
how exciting and powerful this is, because something that's important to note here is that we built an API, and that API is calling this function, and this function can load data from literally anywhere. So like
Anywhere you can
if
do
you
for
were
whatever you want.
yeah, so like if you wanted to build an app that like pulled in your GitHub info and your Twitter info and your like latest Instagram posts and whatever, and have a single query that would pull that in, you could build functions to load in that data for each person, and all you would have to put in is like a username. And then, so like for me, my username's the same on Twitter, or if I think I
Yep,
have an Instagram that I haven't updated in years, but like all those different accounts. So I could just drop in my one username and then query against all these different APIs and put that
absolutely.
data together. And we did this
Absolutely.
in,
Like say you were an author for a blog, right? Like
yeah.
then you could pull in all your social information as long as it's related or that name is available on you as the user within the those GraphQL fields that come back with your data. Yeah.
And for any of you who haven't tried to build something like that on your own, it's a pain. So, Gatsby has one approach to this, which is you use a source plugins, which puts it into the Gatsby API layer. And that's super useful when you're building the site when you can build the site ahead of time. But if you were to be doing something dynamic, like you had real-time comments or something like that, and you wanted to say, like, let's say I have a code blog and I want to let people comment and I want to use their GitHub info for showing
Oh
their
yeah,
avatar, then I
exactly.
could have someone comment and in real time pull their avatar from GitHub and then send that back so that it could live update on the page using a GraphQL subscription. Subscriptions
Yep.
aren't something you can do in Gatsby, so AWS kind of helps fill in that gap for real time. So this is a really really powerful approach. You can do a
And
ton of stuff here.
not even that, something that we haven't even really got into, and I don't think we'll have time, so I don't want to start diving into it, but this same function, we could create an API gateway REST endpoint and let people put in, like, their own place to like figure out the weather ahead of time or something. Like, I don't know
Oh
why you would, but the
yeah.
point being is that you can access this function from multiple other categories or services that you set up. So like if you wanted to do real time checking of the weather in a given location,
Mm-hmm.
you could allow them to do that relatively easily. It's pretty interesting. And then with the React components and helpers, like, it gets even there. I would love to do authentication with you one day, because if
We
you
should
think
totally do
this
that.
makes
Yeah.
something easy, you should see how easy Amplify makes handling like enterprise grade authentication.
I mean, you have my attention. I think if you're
It's
watching
wild.
and you want to hear about this, like tweet at us or put it in the chat,
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
let
Let
me
me
know
know
what you
because,
want to see
yeah.
on here, because this stuff is super powerful and there's a whole world of things to cover.
Yeah. So real quick, the access control in the left menu, if you wanted to put the site behind basic auth, right? So like maybe if you're building off of a different branch, like staging or something like that, you could add password for it.
Oh, cool!
Uh,
I did not know that was a
yeah.
thing. That's super cool.
Yeah. And then one more that is just got released that I love. If you go under general,
General
yep, and then scroll in app details, hit edit.
app details, editing.
Yeah, scroll down and we'll see, keep going, branch auto detection. So turn that on. And again, the name doesn't. So what this means is, like, you can specify a regex pattern, and any branch that gets pushed to GitHub that matches that pattern name, it will create a build and deployment for that branch.
And so this is like if I wanted to have a preview staging environment to say like, hey, I added this new feature. Do you want to check it out? This would automatically build that as soon as I push the branch. So, and then I'd get like a private URL to share, or how does that work?
No, so I'm not explaining it right. So there's two ways to add more things. So right now, this app is configured to the branch master. The
Uh-huh.
other way is like if you had a staging branch, right? And everybody always checked out staging to see like features and test it. You would actually hit connect app again,
Okay.
pick the same thing, and then and then pick the staging branch instead of master. And then anytime someone pushed the staging, that would get a build. What
Okay.
this is saying is the main. So this build will always go from that. But if I encounter any other branches with this naming pattern, say release, every branch that's tagged with release, you want to build a new deployment. So then you could put like release star, and then any branch that starts with release, it will create a build and deploy. You don't even need the slash. Yeah, just do star.
That's cool.
And so and then in this case, if you do like feature development, like a lot of people do a feature development workflow where you have, a branch and an environment per that feature so that it can be tested in isolation. So you could create a new backend environment. You could have all branches share an existing maybe dev environment or staging. It's really up to you. I really like to do new backend environments for each connected branch. And so then if we went into GitHub and made a new branch, called release and pushed it, it would create a fully new deployment instead of redeploying master.
Oh, cool. Okay, I get it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that for this one.
No, yeah, I would hit
but I love that. I love that as an approach.
yeah, I honestly, I like to put star in there, and then every branch that gets pushed gets a deployment.
That's awesome. And so this is live.
Yeah, and
now,
then
right?
once it's live. So it's live. And then one more thing, if you scroll down, just back in the console real quick.
Let me put this link in the chat real quick. All right, back in the console. I'm scrolling down.
So scroll. Click on master. Click on the blue.
Click on master.
We want to get into the last build. Yeah. So if we scroll very down to verify a little bit further, there you go. So it takes screenshots too and shows you what your site looks like in other browser sizes.
That's very cool. And so is there a way for me to like pull these out? Like if I wanted to say post these to my Slack channel or something whenever we do a deployment?
Oh, that's a very good question. I honestly don't know. I'll find out for you though.
That'd be super cool. I'm trying to get Gerald from
the
they're
just
team
images. I bet they're in S3 somewhere, but like, it'd be cool to be able to do it programmatically.
Yeah. So I'm really trying to get Gerald from the Netlify team to come and teach me how to do slash commands so that we can do some custom stuff with Slack. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Well, sick, man. This is awesome. So we in about 45, 55 minutes. No, a little longer than that. A little over an hour. We have built a completely functional backend serverless GraphQL API, which is super cool in and of itself. We then hook that up to dynamic data using a serverless function that can pull from any API.
Yep. Also super cool by itself.
Yeah, also super cool by itself. And then we built a Gatsby site, which is super cool by itself.
Super cool overload right now.
But then we got it deployed onto the internet. And so I think this is going to sound like it's kind of a backhanded compliment, but it's for real. Like AWS development was such a nightmare before Amplify. So seeing how painless this was compared to what I remember dealing with when I was trying to hook up, I had to hook up my S3 bucket to a CloudFront instance, and then I was writing my own bash scripts to invalidate CloudFront, and oh my God. And I still think it didn't work right.
Just the authorization, because even services need authorization to talk to other services. So you have to understand IAM roles, know how to permission them properly, connect the services together, and it handles all of that for you. And that's what I'm saying. I'd be so excited to come back on and show how authentication works, build out a more functional GraphQL API with very granular authentication requirements. Some stuff is public, some stuff is private, and how all that works and how fast and easy it is to set up. I felt the same way for a long time. And that's the point of Amplify. That's really what the team has been working really hard to do, is just make it so that people without AWS experience can come in and build apps very quickly on the same infrastructure that other large companies are using.
For sure. And we've got some requests in the chat for you to come back on and do auth. So I think we'll have to set that up. But Kurt, I think we're at a great stopping point here. We've got our site live on the internet. It's here. Totally. And at this point, I think we can start breaking it down. So where should people find you on the internet?
Yeah, so on the internet, so you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Curtis Kemple, just my full name. That is definitely the number one place to go to find me. If you want more
Your
information
number one
about
source
Amplify,
for Kurt Kemple news.
that's it. That's where I'm at most times. Probably too much. Yeah. But if you want more info about Amplify, I would go to or is it AWS Amplify
AWS-amplify.io.
.github.io. Did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get
You
it? I got it.
absolutely did.
Ha ha ha. Yeah, so this is the docs. This is the main source of information. So APIs, that real nitty gritty docs. Docs is more of like your getting started tutorials, breakdowns of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's breakdowns by frameworks. Like if you're using React or React Native, there's docs specifically for that. And yeah, so the support. Amplify framework has really good support for the main framework. So Vue, Angular, React, React Native, iOS, and Android.
That is awesome. All right. Well, Kurt, thank you so much. And everybody, make sure you stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button so that you get notified whenever we go live. We've got some really exciting stuff coming up. So next week on Monday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, I've got Nathaniel Okenwa coming on. He's going to teach me how to build a real-time video chat app using Twilio, which blows my mind. That's awesome. He's like, oh yeah, we can totally do that in 90 minutes. And I was like, are you kidding?
That's
like,
so cool.
Video real-time chat is hard, man. But he's like, no, this is going to be super easy. Later on in the week, I got Kathleen McMahon coming on from O'Reilly. She's going to teach me how to do design systems, and we're going to play with MDX and Gatsby. I got Swizzik Teller coming on to do data viz in Gatsby. We got Khalid Garbaya to do Contentful. Like it's going to be, we've got so much good stuff. We've got Ken Wheeler coming up in the future. We've got Sarah Drasner. We've got Tatiana Mack. Like this is going to be a really, really good couple of months worth of content. So definitely hit that follow button, subscribe, make sure that you do all that good stuff. And if you've got ideas for silly sound effects or other silly things that I should do with this Twitch stream, please send me a tweet. With that, thank you very much for watching. Kurt, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was amazing. Bye, everybody.
See you later, y'all. We'll see you next time.